Chapter 10, The Weight of the Word. How did we get here? I didn't mean to fall in love with a married man. When we met, I was a woman who had genuinely found peace in her own solitude. After being single for so long, I didn't know what, if anything, could make me feel like exposing my heart to hurt again. I wanted a casual relationship with Orlando. I wanted it to be light, fun, and easy. I wanted the fun without being consumed. But Orlando was relentless. He was consistent in a way I hadn't known men could be, a steady devotion that slowly made my skepticism crumble. He proved his love not just in grand gestures, but in the way he showed up for me every day. It took him telling me for nearly a whole year that he loved me until I truly let myself feel it and believe it. Now, almost 4 years into this relationship, I would not have imagined from the start that we would end up with such a vast space between us. The complications of life have had us both questioning how much love matters in a relationship. How much can we believe in love and ourselves and one another? I remember the early conversations, the ones where the blueprint was first being drawn for our relationship, the surprising connection we found in one another. He had been honest with me from the start about the complexity of his situation. He described a marriage that had morphed into a poly under duress scenario. An open marriage was a take it or leave it choice that he had in front of him. It was a caged existence he had been forced into or felt forced into after Karen had began an affair with his boss. He had spent years in a state of emotional paralysis, not knowing who he should be more upset with, the wife that broke her vows or the man he had trusted like a big brother. He was there for his kid, trying not to repeat the actions of his parents who divorced when he was about the same age Andrew is now. This had him feeling like he was no longer in control of his own life. The deeply rooted need to be there for Andrew meant that he was willing to ignore his own wants and needs to the point that he became a shell of himself. For years, Karen would disappear in the middle of the night. Whenever her beau had called, she would be gone for days at a time, leaving Orlando in the dark, feeling empty in the house that was their home, wondering if she was even alive. That trauma, that constant state of waiting for a ghost to return, was what led him to waking up scared in the middle of the night. When I started answering his middle of the night texts, I was providing a comfort he didn't know could be available to him. The knowledge that someone was actually there and that they weren't going to disappear. Honestly, I felt the same. The way he anticipated my needs and desires was something I had not thought possible. I didn't know what it felt like to be comforted, loved, supported, and noticed. Orlando was so good at all of this, but the relationship we built was one that both of us felt so confident in that it also meant he knew he could let me down again and again, and I would not disappear. Now, the scales have tipped, and I feel like I cannot keep this trend up. Watching the hurt in Orlando's eyes as he keeps trying harder to appease the moving target of Karen's expectations. When Orlando is presented with more boundaries that seem like rules and demands, it seems like Karen is making a conscious effort of control over Orlando's time, control over money, and this impression of family that was oppressive instead of warm. The problem with control is that it doesn't leave room for the consideration of anyone else. Selfish is how I would describe it. I don't believe the open format for relationships work. at least not often and not for most. I think that inevitably someone in the relationship ends up in a poly under duress situation. Being monogamous to a man who lived that way until deciding to divorce, I think it takes an amazing amount of emotional work to care for multiple lovers. As much as I can be patient and understanding of Orlando, we are reaching a point where I have been pushed to the edge. I don't know how much more I can take. He had watched Karen parade her beau through their house and their shared life for years before he decided to start removing himself from the wreckage. They had officially decided to separate only a week before I had met him. He told me later that he'd intended for things to be casual, just like my initial intentions. But his heart had recognized mine from the very first sight. A jolt of recognition that neither of us could deny. The problem, I think, is that we only accept the love we think we deserve. In the beginning, he didn't know how to proceed. He let Karen dictate the rules of the family home because he was terrified of the label divorced. He didn't want the reality of a failed marriage to crush his young kid. So he tried separation with cohabitation. When that became a living purgatory, he tried the apartment, only for Karen to take that over from us. It's only in hindsight that I can see I was enabling him. He was stuck in his childhood wounds. Appeasing Karen was appeasing the ghost of his mother. And me pushing my feelings aside, that was me reverting to a version of myself that had been alone for too long. The feeling of being alone in a relationship is particularly isolating. At the end of my first marriage, my lawyer told me something I will never forget. When you are spending too many days waiting for things to get better, things are already not going well. Also, don't drag out the process. The longer things drag on, in his experience, the more petty it ultimately becomes. It was only through our time together that Orlando began to understand his thoughts and feelings and that they mattered. Our relationship has taught me that as well. Some time after Karen had taken over our apartment, Orlando decided that getting her out of his life was necessary. I remember telling him, "It's not that she needs to be out of our lives, Orlando. It's about not excluding anyone. It has never been okay for her to be so mean to me or about me or mean to you." Now, years into the relationship, we are standing in the wreckage of an actual divorce proceeding. The word married was a rule we lived around, a technicality in the margins. But now that the legal ties are finally being severed, the word feels heavier. Divorce isn't just a signature on paper, it's a demolition. Karen isn't just a shadow anymore. She's a legal reality that is a focus of every decision we are making in our lives. Orlando is the rock that he said he would be, that I could lean on him. He's also been that for everyone else in his life. And even rocks can crack under enough pressure. The scared 4-year-old deep inside the man I love just wants to be seen and safe. His fears are closer to the surface than ever before. His exhaustion is so complete that he's almost entirely shut down when he was out in the world. But the moment he steps into my sanctuary and closes the door, the transition is instantaneous. He doesn't even make it into my living room. He just collapses into my arms, letting out a long, shuddering breath, as if he's finally allowed to stop holding up the world. "I don't know what I would do without you," he whispers into my shoulder, his body finally softening enough to rest. We sat in my bedroom last night, the air quiet and heavy. Stacks of legal papers sat on the coffee table between us, a stark physical barrier that literally divided our living space, forcing us to lean over the documents just to reach one another. Orlando reaches for my hand a lot throughout the day, grounding for both of us. I glanced at our shared business account on my phone, the one I had funded so we could start building, and saw a massive transfer to his legal team. The balance had been drained down to nearly nothing. A flash of worry hit me, but I pushed it down, focusing instead on the man in front of me. "It's almost over," he whispered, his hand wrapped tightly around a mug of tea I had brought him. His knuckles were white. "Are you still with me, Delilah? This seems like too much, even for me. How are you still with me?" "I'm here," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was aching for the man who had fought so long just to be seen, to be free from the weight of believing he didn't deserve to be cared for. "But the battle you are entering has just begun," I tell him. From my experience with divided families and my own divorce process, the administration part, the formality of paperwork, was the necessary first step. Healing my spirit was a much bigger job, and that's what was coming next for Orlando. He squeezed my hand, his gaze meeting mine with a raw, naked desperation. "You and me, that is all I need. The power couple," he added, confidence flickering in his eyes. I moved my chair back, walking to his side of the table and sitting myself on his lap, leaning my forehead against his forehead, choosing to believe the vision we were trying to build, ignoring the drain of the account and the weight of the papers that had become the centerpiece of our daily lives. "Be patient with me, please. There's good things coming for us." "I know it's asking a lot," he pleaded, "but please stay patient with me. Don't give up on me, okay?" "I promise," I whispered, my heart feeling heavy with fear. I was trying to move towards hope. I was trying to move away from that fear and let hope bloom in my mind and my heart again. The blueprint was finished. The demolition of the shadows had begun. And for the first time, I could see the horizon of our one day forming through the chaos and debris. Happily ever after. That has always been where I thought the story really begins.